sure we cover with everybody today. So I'm going to leave this polling question up here for a couple more minutes as we just introduce a little bit about what we do here at Quizzify, and then we'll get to the main topic. But as an organization, Quizzify is all about solving the problem of poor health literacy. As most of you would know and agree, only about 12% of the adult population in the United States really understands healthy living and healthcare, and that's where we come in. If you go to the next slide, and also a health illiterate population ends up being much more expensive in terms of healthcare, and as they improve their health literacy, you'll see your costs go down as well. And just a brief overview of how Quizzify goes about this. This is how we teach people about we improve their health literacy. And essentially what we have is a creative quiz style that people learn by actually completing the question. And we try to look for impactful healthcare hacks, like how to detect certain forms of cancer, where education can really make a difference in early detection, like melanoma, or ways to painlessly, inexpensively, non-invasively fill cavities, or we make sure people understand the nature of back pain, and certainly not to rush into something like a spinal fusion, and the right questions to ask before you go into one of these high-tech scans. CT scans are full of radiation, and you really should ask a few questions. Sometimes you need one, but we make sure that people are prepared to ask the right questions. We've got doctors at Harvard Medical School reviewing our content. Our format is to really use a little bit of tongue-in-cheek humor and trivia to engage people. Once they learn this stuff, it sticks with them. 95% of the people that are involved with Quizzify that use and do our lessons will report back to us that they've learned something. We get a great completion of our monthly lessons. It's over 92%. And we have a ton of custom material. And that's what today's webinar is all about, is the content that Al Lewis in particular has worked really hard at in terms of helping people to really understand the nature of GLP-1 drugs. And in doing that, it actually creates a strategy to help people to manage their coverage. So without further ado, here's Al Lewis.
Thank you, Mark. And I'm here with Mark and Peter, our CTO, today, and they will be jumping at different points. We're going to start with the most important part, which is the controlling the initial uptake from what we call the GLP-curious. The title was to dissuade the GLP-curious and educate the GLP-serious. Well, this is where the ROI is. Why is it so hard to control short-term use by the GLP-curious? Well, that's easy. It's because everybody wants more. People are asking for more, despite the high cost. Doctors are prescribing more. Obesity medication like Wegovy and Zepbound have become so popular and lucrative that many physicians, including psychiatrists, dermatologists, plastic surgeons, have added them to their practice. The PBMs, not the ones that we work with. We tend to work with the so-called next generation PBMs, but the traditional PBMs just simply make a lot more money the more drugs are sold here. Coaching vendors, we took out the name, but the coaching vendors who work with these drug companies want people to use more. There was just a big article yesterday, I can tell you it's public information, of Weight Watchers trying to convince people that that there's a big ROI in putting people on these meds. Influencers love these drugs. They don't tell you about the risk. Part two, they not only don't tell you about the risk, but they're actually making some money on these things that they don't tell you about. And this doesn't begin to talk about the TV. Mark, you're the one who's been watching the U.S. Open. What did you see?
Well, you can see that that anyone who watches any TV these days, the sponsors of the weight loss drugs are really front and center. There's always a new jingle, a new commercial, a new song that helps you just remember that they're out there, and there is a huge public demand for
it. That's what gets people to try them. But the thing is, most of the people who try them don't succeed, and that's what costs you a ton of money. Here are some persistent stats, and we've sourced them all. Incredibly, essentially one out of every three people who starts only lasts for 1 month on these things. That's money just thrown away. There, 58% in total quit before they receive any clinical benefit, but in an average of 6 months, and it's going to take longer than that before any clinical benefit kicks in. And 64% have dropped out before a year. Peter, Mark, anything you want to add to that?
It's just it's actually remarkable, the 30% that only do one prescription. I mean, you have to imagine this is someone who, who presumably has a concern about their weight, their health. They go through the trouble, they go to the doctor, they heard about this somewhere. So they go through all that, and these are injections, so this is not just like taking a pill. This is a bit more involved. And for some reason, despite all of that, they just do the one prescription and they drop out. And probably, I mean, I guess a lot of them probably do at least use that prescription, but it wouldn't be surprising if some of them just didn't even bother using it. So it just really, I mean, that's the most extreme case, but it just shows really well just how there are people that take this seriously, but some are very frivolous about approaching this.
Yeah, particularly because of all the background noise, the propaganda. So we're saying, why pay for these dropouts in the first place? And let's see how many people are dropping out using another stat. This is from the Garner Group, which has some great stats on their site. Almost half of GLP-1 prescriptions are low value, meaning that they've basically dropped them. And this is up from 20%. And you might see an inflection point here. The reason is that this 20% was generally diabetics, and they're pretty disciplined because their health is really at stake. And then when it became a weight loss thing, the number of people, as Peter just pointed out, who are trying them and dropping goes way up.
Yeah, it's kind of so just to add one quick thing to that. I mean, most of us probably know a diabetic in our family or among our friends. I mean, these are people that for years often, unfortunately, have to be disciplined, taking their insulin, measuring their blood sugar levels, and so on. And so to them, following a drug regimen is sort of part of their life. So, however, it's almost a running joke that people hop on and off weight loss programs all the time. I mean, gyms basically know to market around December, knowing that 90% of people won't show up after January. So unfortunately, we've had this sea change where it's gone from fairly serious people taking these drugs to some serious people, but a lot of very unserious.
A lot of very unserious people who are going to drop out, and the dropout math is scary. Let's take a look-see at it. So if you have 100 users who start out on this drug, you're actually wasting $130,000 just on those 100 users. It depends on how long they're staying in, and it also depends on what you're paying for the drugs. And we're assuming after rebates, after employee share, you're paying $500 a month. 30% of these people are taking one drug, so you're wasting $15,000 on them. Another 28 are dropping out an average of 6 months, and that's 84,000 that you're wasting. And another 6 are at least waiting 10 months before they drop out. That's another 30,000. So it works out to this 130,000, which is the summation of these. And this is 64% of the total 100, 64 of the 100, $2,000 per drop that is just thrown away. This is not to say that the people who stay on it are going to save you any money either, but this money is just thrown away. These wasted GLPs are driving your healthcare costs. And as you'll see, we're going to provide the seatbelts. This is not us talking. This is 118 employer members of the Business Group on Health. GLPs is their number one concern. And my suspicion is if you're on this webinar, it's your number one concern as well. And that brings us to what are our seatbelts? What do we do? Well, we said we dissuade the GLP-curious, we educate the GLP-serious. Let's start out with the GLP-curious dissuasion. We overcome the propaganda with education. So now we're going to, I think, do another poll. Which is true about Ozempic face, which is the sagging in this picture. And your choices are, unlike Ozempic, newer drugs like Zepbound don't cause it. It is not caused by Ozempic. It usually goes away if you keep the weight off. It always goes away if you regain the weight. Mark, you want to put that up?
Okay.
And while we're waiting, I would be surprised if any questions had come in yet because we just started. But is there anything that's come in?
Well, in terms of the question is, given that you had a lot of discussion with industry participants, are you finding that the people that are going on GLP-1s for weight loss, do they understand what they're getting into? Do they understand what they should know?
No, of course not. That's our business model. So whoever asked that question should be signing up for Quizzify right after this meeting. And Mark, do we have some answers coming in? We've got a ton of people on this webinar, so I think we got
Share
some
the
answers.
results here. Okay.
Okay, so the correct answer is it is not caused by Ozempic. That only 25% of people got that right. And let's just go through these answers here. Any rapid weight loss causes this, but you're more likely to have rapid weight loss on GLP-1s, but it's not specifically caused by the drug. If you keep the weight off, it generally does not go away. It depends on your skin type, your age. So usually occasionally it goes away if you keep the weight off. And it says it always goes away if you regain the weight. It goes away a lot for a lot of people who regain the weight, but sometimes it's permanent. Now, if you're a woman and you see this, you don't even have to read the question. You see the before and after picture, which, by the way, in the quiz, we do say somebody photoshopped the after picture. So, we're completely on the level about this stuff, or else the Harvard Medical School people would not put their approval on it. So if you're a woman, you see this picture, photoshopped or not, if you're not serious about your health, which is exactly the people you want to continue, you drop it. What about if you're a guy? How do GLP-1s change your risk of erectile dysfunction? More than 4 times up, 20%, no one knows. And GLP-1s help you lose weight, and hence they reduce their risk. Mark, I know we have a ton of people on this, but I would once again be surprised if we're already getting questions. Is there anything coming in?
No, I don't have another question at the moment here.
All right, well, then let's go right to the answers here.
We've got a fair amount of answers already. Okay.
See, this is why your employees are going to learn something, my friends. Only 16% got it right. The answer is that your risk increases more than 4 times. This is the control group, the study group. It's more than a 4-time increase. Your testosterone deficiency only goes up as well. It goes up as well. Now, if you are a guy, I see any drug that somebody wants me to take that's not going to save my life, that has this risk, even if it's not particularly high in an absolute sense, I want nothing to do with it. Peter, do you want to add something?
So there's also kind of a broader point here, Al, which is that this audience on this webinar is probably a little bit more familiar with side effects and at least potential side effects. I mean, you have to put yourself in the shoes of the average person who has gotten constant media praise for these as if this is all upside, no downside. I mean, there's a good chunk of people who will not even know that there are side effects of any kind. So forgetting about the specific percentages of them, and so it's just they may not be aware that there is any downside at all.
The side effects do tend to be in pretty small writing. And by the way, this is not listed as a side effect yet. Because this data is fairly recent. So we are completely on top of everything that comes in. So now we've had one for women and one for men. And remember, we're saying that people taking this quiz, unless they're serious about their health, they're going to drop. It's not just these 2 questions. We've got 26 questions that are, vetted by the folks at Harvard Medical School that we say you should take this quiz before you start the drugs. It's kind of imagine step therapy before you start the drugs. And in the context of this quiz, remember this slide about $130,000 being wasted on 100 users, 2,000 per dropout. What we are saying, oh, and then just to put it all in a nice graphic form here. So almost 2/3 of people will drop out before the year is out. We've showed that. It's been proven. It's been shown. They are not spending the majority of your money because they're dropping out. The 36 is spending the majority of your money, the GLP-serious, as we call them. This is not to say that they're going to save you any money, but it is that they're serious. And you do want to, you wouldn't be on this webinar if you didn't want to support your serious employees. But let's look at this 37% that gets wasted and see what we can do to it here. So now we're taking this slide that you just saw right here, and it becomes the first two slides here. Focus on the 37%, which is the dropouts. Now, we are guaranteeing that 60% of that 37% does not, who start the quiz, do not start on the drugs. And in fact, we don't even bill you for them until 3 months after they've started the quiz, in case they changed their mind, they weren't going to do the drugs and they decided to do the drugs. We do think, not guaranteeing it, that 80% of folks who take these quizzes, and you've seen the questions, and you know you didn't know the answers, most of you folks, will not continue to the drugs. The 36% who are serious about it will continue to the drugs. And once again, those are the ones you want. So we have actually figured out a way to distinguish between the GLP-curious and the GLP-serious. So you'll save 60 to 80.
So before we move on from that, I just want to make sure, because this is the heart of the matter. I just want to kind of double emphasize this so everybody understands. I mean, first of all, even though the dropouts are 2/3 of the population, they're only a little bit over 1/3 of the spend because of the dropout, right? So the people that are in the 36%, the ones that stay on it, they stay on it 100% of the time. So therefore, that's why they're almost 2/3 of the spend. The reason we're focusing on the 37% of the spend is that that should be, relatively speaking, much lower hanging fruit, right? So these are people that are already not committed, right? For whatever reason, maybe they don't like needles, maybe they're not consistent taking drugs, maybe they don't like some of the side effects, the copays. I mean, there could be a lot of reasons, but these are people that are not strongly committed. And therefore, the whole idea here is that if they actually saw the whole picture, a fair accounting of the upsides and downsides of these drugs, rather than kind of bumble around using them for a few months and then dropping, they might think better of it up front. So that's where, from that 37%, you take 60 or 80% of that becomes either 22% of your total spend over the year or 30% of your total spend over the year that you can save just by focusing on that category.
And 22% is your floor. That's what we're guaranteeing. But at what price? Well, you go right to our weight loss drug curriculum website, and we'll send you the link. And you'll see that there's a price of $250 or less, depending on the group size. And this is per person who starts Quizzify and does not go on to get the drugs, which gives you an immediate ROI. This isn't one of these things where like the ROI is way down the road kind of thing. Immediate ROI of 10 times or more. So just to use a very simple arithmetic, you're spending $500 after rebates and after employee share. Let's say the average person who drops is 5 months. That's $2,500. $2,500 on 250 is 10 times or more. Now let's break that.
It's actually arguably better than immediate, because you save the money first and then you get billed afterwards. So it's actually cash flow positive.
You can play the float.
Several months.
You can play the float on our nickel here. So this is the how that breaks down by months avoided and the ROI. Now we gave an example of 250. If you're a larger group, it might be 100. We have a few jumbo groups in this group that are going to be even considerably on this webinar that are going to be even considerably low 100. So this is saying, for instance, somebody who drops after 6 months, you've spent 250, you've saved what is that, 3,000. So that's a 12, actually 12.5, 12 times ROIs. But here's the interesting thing. See, these are very high ROIs. You're saying, yeah, but how do I know I'm going to get them? Well, remember the other thing. If we do not avoid any months, if people start on the drugs within the next 3 months, we don't charge anything. So there's no savings, but we're not charging. So you're basically, the worst case scenario is that you break even on an individual. So this is already an offer you can't refuse, but in the immortal words of the late night TV, but wait, there's more. Those who continue on the drugs after this 26 question quiz can access the entire 14-month Quizzify weight loss drug educational curriculum at no additional charge. And that's where the GLP-serious employee support comes in. So you see here 9 sets of modules. It's really 14 months because there's 5 nutrition modules that we cover with specific quizzes for people who are on weight loss drugs to help them re-enter into the undrugged world. Now you can require these as standalone quizzes for continuing authorization, or if you have a coaching program, this will add, I don't know, that it's free basically if you have the coaching program already, and or you can make them voluntary. But if you require them, just think about this: if you are paying employees to lose weight, they should be willing to commit to learning how to keep it off. All you're asked to do is to take a quiz every month for you to spend $500 to $1,000 on them. That doesn't seem like that much of an ask. Now, our quizzes name names because that's how people shop. So here's an example from our nutrition category. Sugar cells, which of the following does not contain added sugar? Your choices are cottage cheese with fruit, baked potato chips, pea crisps, or naked green machine juice with no sugar added. And Mark, at this point, we probably do have a few questions.
We do have a question here in particular. How do you get a potential member's attention respectfully and guide them down the right path?
All right, that's a great question that we're actually about to get to. There are multiple ways of doing that, and not everyone is going to have the same way. But I hate to sound like a cliche, but let's put that question in the parking lot for a little while. And let's see what the guesses are in this question.
Well, the one thing I'd add is that we are very good at engaging people. I mean, in general, Quizzify with our health literacy education, these quizzes where everybody learns something keeps people's attention and they learn.
Actually, Mark, as long as you're adding things to that, I'll add to what you added, which is that if you do regular Quizzify, you only pay for people who are engaged, okay? You don't pay, or you can pay PMPY, but most people prefer to pay for completed quizzes. And by the way, there's an option on those quizzes that says, I didn't learn anything from this quiz. And even if they complete the quiz, if they say they didn't learn anything, you don't pay. All right, so this time, finally, the majority is correct. It is the pea crisps. And let's go through each one of these because there's a lesson in each one of them. Any product, yogurt, cottage cheese, whatever, that is in the refrigerated section that has fruit in it and it's not artificially flavored, which, by the way, we have a whole module on artificial flavoring, which turns out to be quite gross. We do have some solutions for it, but any product that is not artificially flavored, that is refrigerated with fruit, is full of sugar. Period. End of discussion. No exceptions whatsoever. Now, this one here, and we don't mean to pick on, well, frankly, we do mean to pick on Lay's, but it's going to be true of any one of these. If there's a product that normally contains a lot of salt and oil, and it doesn't contain oil, it needs to have something else in it to make it taste good. In this particular case, it's sugar. Now, in all fairness to Lay's, it's not a lot of sugar. On the other hand, people do eat a lot of potato chips, so it adds up. The pea crisps are a very healthy snack. I could probably show you. I have some of my own cabinet here, lightly salted. I was going to say nobody ever died from lightly salted things. Very few people die from or are harmed by light salting. In fact, we always say, as between a salty and a sugary snack, most people should be reaching for the salty one. We'd like to say don't do either, but this is the real world. People want something fun to eat. The salty ones are better than the sugary ones. This product, we have a whole quiz about things like this. It says no sugar added, but it is full of added sugar. Now you might say, how can they do that? Which would be a great question. And we're doing well time-wise, so I'll tell you the backstory, which is that, do you remember how we used to get our products, our groceries delivered during the pandemic? Well, the store down the street has this green juice that they make, which is pretty gross, but it's good for you, and you can mix it with stuff. And I used to buy it, and so I ordered it, and they were all out, and they substituted this green machine juice instead. So I get it, I look at it, I said, oh, it has no sugar added. Okay, so I start drinking it, and it was so sweet, I literally spit it into the sink. And I said, what the heck? And I looked at it, and it has 53 grams of sugar, but it doesn't have any added sugar. Well, how is that possible? This is a lesson that we teach in regular Quizzify and in our weight loss curriculum, because it is so important to understand all the loopholes in the FDA regulations about labeling. If a fruit juice concentrate, apple juice concentrate, grape juice concentrate, is considered an added sugar and needs to be listed as an added sugar unless it's sweetening a juice product, in which case it can count as a natural sugar. Now, your stomach, your pancreas, it doesn't know the difference between when the sugar concentrate is added to juice and when it's added to regular food. So these things will get you. But people do not know that. You folks did, 44%. But I guarantee you most of your employees don't. So now we have some time, and this is the most important part. And this actually, I think, gets to the question that we haven't answered yet, Mark, which is the PBM resistance and how you get this implemented. So let's say you decide to use Quizzify to contain weight loss drug costs. And I'd like to think that we've given everybody, as we say, an offer you can't refuse in order to do this. Well, what comes next? Well, you can ask your PBM to use it as part of their pre-authorization process, step therapy. You need to show that you've taken the quiz, which is very easy. We have all the data of who's taken it before you get the drug. And then if they agree, you communicate this. It becomes part of step therapy and everybody is happy. But some of the largest PBMs who make a lot of money on these rebates that they don't share all of might refuse. Well, you can point out that in fact, you have the labels on these drugs say that you need to teach employees about diet and exercise. And in fact, you have a fiduciary requirement to do what the labels say. You can't be hiring vendors to go off label. And I'm just going to briefly show you the link on this. Our group health plans that cover weight loss drugs breaching their ERISA fiduciary duty by not offering diet and exercise programming. All right, and we will send you the link to that. But basically, you number one, you can't delegate a fiduciary duty unless someone's willing to accept it. And my suspicion is very strongly that, with the exception of a few PBMs, they're not willing to be fiduciaries. So they might say, something, we don't want to, create this legal risk for ourselves. So yeah, you can go ahead and do that. And we didn't understand that as well as we should have, yada, yada, yada. Or they may refuse. Now, if they refuse, you should, in the next cycle, you can't do this tomorrow, you should switch PBMs. there are a lot of transparent PBMs who would probably do this. There are two in particular who've basically said, where do we sign? We're ready to go. We want to do this with you, Disclosed RX and TrueScripts. And we think we're going to be adding to this list quite a bit, but these are the two for right now. Before I go to the second part of this, anything that Mark or Peter you want to add here?
So there actually there is a relevant question, which is how do you get what would you recommend if an employer is interested but their PBM won't add this to their prior authorization? So you address some of that.
All right, well, that is the question. So let's get to it. There are any number of ways you can do this without violating, the PBMs have these agreements that people sign where you can't interfere with them at all in pre-authorization. They're in charge of everything. But there are things you can do before you even get to the PBM. The PBM is not even aware that you're doing them, and it's not, frankly, any of their business. You can go through your navigator to deliver a quiz, and then the navigator will send them, once somebody completes the quiz, to the PBM, and the PBM can take it from there. There are wellness vendors who deliver these quizzes as part of their wellness program. Once again, many should be willing to go along with this, and I think there are a couple on this webinar. But in particular, Aduro and USPM have basically said, yeah, bring them on. We're ready. We're ready to go here with the pre-authorization quiz, the 26-question quiz that it's called the Before Your Journey quiz, and we internally refer to it as the Curb Their Enthusiasm quiz. There are weight loss coaching vendors who will deliver the quiz, Virta and Twin Health, and USPM would consider itself a weight loss coaching vendor as well as wellness, and they're all set to go. That's very easy. Or you can deliver through your normal wellness program that goes to everyone. And let's look at the way that works. You probably have about 30 to 40% obesity rate, people who are eligible for this drug. So some number of these people who are eligible will not take the quiz. Some number will, and this is the part you're getting at. And then there's some people who, if you're doing an incentive program, are not indicated, but they'll take the quiz just to get the incentive. Peter, I know you wanted to add something here.
Well, actually, there are a couple relevant audience questions. One is, what prior authorization criteria do you think are appropriate for approving use of GLP-1s for weight loss?
Okay, that's a really good question. And the answer is that prior auth generally doesn't work well for weight loss. Prior auth works if what is being authorized is objective. So for instance, I wanted physical therapy for my knee. I had to show an x-ray that showed that I had, enough damage to get physical therapy. I can't fake an x-ray. If somebody, in the average BMI in the US is 29, and if you're doing a 30 on this, which is what, most of the large PBMs will make you do, all somebody has to do is gain some weight, and they can go in and get authorized for it. So pre-authorization does not work particularly well when what is being pre-authorized is within the purview of the employee, and if somebody wants to cheat, they can cheat. So I would say this is what we call self pre-authorization here, is the way to go. Peter,
Yeah,
was there another remark?
What we're looking
What
we're looking to do with our education is to really focus on these numbers of people that are dropping out and are not serious users. So it isn't quite like a pre-authorization solution. It's what we're trying to do is just, because these drugs are so expensive, we're trying to just mitigate reduce significantly the amount of people that really are not going to stick with this drug. And it's a very expensive short-term experiment to have somebody take this drug for 1 month to drop off. And we're trying to stop that.
And it's not expensive at all number one, with Quizzify in general. Number two, if you're doing this approach and you're sending to everybody, you get Quizzify's regular pricing. It's a regular quiz. It's going to everybody, which is considerably lower than what you saw.
So another interesting pre-auth question is, would you include this as part of pre-auth for diabetics as well? Because there seems to be a fair amount of off-label prescribing where the weight loss category may be excluded under the plan, but still gets through under diabetes. So I guess the idea is that people are using this for weight loss, but they're diabetic as well.
Yes, or they get a prescription for metformin for a couple months, which doctors will give you just by asking, because it's a good, safe drug. But if you have a metformin prescription and you've used it for X number of months, that generally qualifies you as a quote unquote diabetic. So I think the short answer to that is that most diabetics who take this quiz will complete it, and true diabetics will complete it and will go on to the drugs, because as we pointed out on a much earlier slide, these folks tend to be serious about their health, they already have side effects or complications sometimes, willing to put up with a few more complications in order to improve their health. So these are all great questions coming in. Frankly, every one of them should be calling us after this session. So we're talking.
So another important question is, why are people stopping after? There are several versions of this question. Like, what is making people drop out? Do we have any insight on that?
The studies that we've looked at I really don't have much insight on that, except that people, the side effects are one of them, and economics is another. Although economics is a kind of a funny one, because they already knew the economics going in. They're not getting the results that they want. They're feeling icky. That's a side effect.
Yeah.
So it's that kind of stuff.
It's also pretty clear.
I'm actually posting.
It's pretty clear that people are naive about what it's like to be on a GLP-1. And, the Before Your Journey quiz does get into all of the risks, the side effects, the necessary lifestyle changes, and everything that we're learning and talking to people in the industry is that people just don't understand this stuff when they get on these drugs.
Yes, and that's exactly.
I also posted a link to the chat. I posted a link to the chat from Healthline, and it just gives a few data points. But the cost is a big reason. Also, people plateau. They might get a little bit of benefit and plateau, and then just sort of give up, or some of the top reasons.
So yes, yes to everything here, and then the other thing, I would say is we talked about the normal wellness program. The normal wellness programs have incentives, and the beauty of your incentive program is, unlike a benefits design, you can easily change your incentive program essentially whenever you want. That's the beauty of it. And you can basically give people, I don't know, $100, $50, $200 to take this quiz to learn about weight loss drugs. And if you look at what else people can earn money for, and this is an example, and I'm sorry, it's a little blurry. It's a screenshot. If you look at what else that people earn money for, there's nothing that comes remotely close. Not even, a beam of light leaving these things wouldn't reach the value of $100 for weight loss drugs for several seconds. None of these are going to particularly save you any money at all. Whereas if you spend $100 on an incentive to get people to take weight loss drugs, I think this is one way to answer that question you got earlier, Mark. It will get people taking them. Now, you might say, yes, well, people who are not indicated are going to take the quiz as well, so we're wasting $100 on that. Honestly, you're probably not, because somebody who's that interested in earning their incentive that they're willing to take a quiz that doesn't apply to them would have found some other way to earn the $100 anyway. So essentially, this is a free way to get people to take these drugs, and it's also very easily implemented. This is looking an awful lot like our typical Quizzify program, and those are quite easily implemented. So let's go back to this initial poll. And Mark, I know this is the first time we've tried putting an answer to a poll up way after.
I think I've got one. There we go.
Okay.
Let me just share them now.
Okay. So, and there's no right answer to this. So, which best describes your position on weight loss drugs? You don't want to cover them and need to explain why. Well, I think we've checked that box. You didn't want to cover them, but pressured into it. A lot of people have not answered this question, which is fine. Oh, actually, you know why? Because we put it up before probably a third of the people, only a third of the people that signed on. You want to cover them for serious users, but not waste money on dropouts. Well, guess what? That's what you just saw. You're perfectly fine covering them as long as your PVM does pre-auth. Um, so it seems like no matter what the answer that your answer was, your choice was in the poll, the answer is the same. You can cover these drugs at low cost and high effectiveness by dissuading the GL curious and educating the GL serious. We have time for most people seem to still be on, and thank you for that. We have time for like one or two more questions if people have them.
So here's an interesting question. I fear members not knowing about the coverage of GLP-1s, getting this quiz, finding out about their coverage, and having interest where they wouldn't have had interest before, or are we getting to a time where the majority of employees know they can get them? I would just say that also that not all of the approaches we had on that flow chart send the quiz to everybody. In fact, most of those approaches were very kind of laser focused on people that were out there or trying to get them, whether it's as part of the pre-auth process or part of the navigator process. So we have options to not actually expose it to everybody. But Al, you want to comment on that?
So yes, and in fact, we do occasionally talk to people who say yes, we cover them, but we don't tell people. And I think you kind of answered that. But if for the we cover them, we don't tell people, you can either use you can either use you can either you can just do it as part of your wellness program, not even really say that you're covering them. Um, or frankly, if people I got to be honest, if you're covering them and people are not knowing that you cover them, which is rare, but it's going to happen. To be honest, I wouldn't do this. I would not, there's something called the Streisand effect. That the state of California hired this guy to send a drone up over the California coast to measure to measure erosion. So he's taking pictures along the way, and he took one of the pictures was of Barbara Streisand's mansion in Malibu, and she found out about it and she sued. So that particular picture, it had 6 views before she sued. After she sued, it got 1 million views. Okay, so, and by the way, she lost the lawsuit and had to give the guy his legal fees back. Anyway, so there are certain things that you do not want to draw attention to. And if you're covering these and only a few people know about it, I would leave it alone.
And we also had a question from Cody about ordering these GLP-1 drugs internationally from Canada. Yes, Cody, if you'll reach out to us, we do know some people that know the process that an organization can empower their employees to get these drugs overseas, which in many cases they're about 20% of the cost of the United States. So reach out to us, Cody, and we'll help you with that.
All right, one more question if we have it.
So this is an interesting one, a good point to wrap on. My understanding is that the short-term use is because these medications are not to be used long-term. And could the percentage of dropouts be because the fast weight loss in the beginning allows them to reach their goal and they shouldn't take it beyond a year anyway?
That's a very good question. And I think people are learning that most people who do drop not everybody by a long shot, do regain the weight, that you need to stay on for at least a year. But some people are saying, you're going to have to stay on much longer than that. So yes, there's going to be some small portion of the quote unquote dropouts who say, I'm great. I'm ready to go to the supermarket, not get sugar, ... That's going to be a small portion that is frankly more than offset by the people who stay on for more than a year and still haven't succeeded and will never be able to get off. All right.
It's kind of the worst case scenario that someone, does it for 3 months. They maybe lose whatever, 10 pounds or something, 15 pounds, stop using it, immediately gain the weight back because they haven't really changed anything else about their lifestyle. And all, basically everyone just wasted time and money along the way. And now the person's also kind of disappointed and, sad. So yeah. So we actually don't want that outcome ideally for people.
Okay, well that wraps. We will be sending a 3-minute summary of this tomorrow and answering any questions that did not get answered. So thank you very much for your time, and we will talk to you soon.